Dr. Miller with a video on volume assignment. Think about periodization within a training session. In particular, how to manage volume when you're trying to see progression of volume on a particular movement pattern or body part, or perhaps the whole body, but you run into the constriction of time, training session time, or recoverability. So how well you recover between sessions. Before I get into it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video, or don't like it after you watch it. You're more than welcome to have that opinion. Won't hold it against you. I only have a few feelings left anyway after years of being a professor and coach, so don't worry about that. You can dislike the video as well. Okay, so let's talk about this. Working with clients is one of the things that has happened repeatedly. Is over time, clients have built up to say, let's say 10 to 15 sets per session for a particular movement pattern and a whole body routine. They're still recovering well, right? The movement patterns are quality. And how do you know that? The training load isn't dropping off significantly. Let's say somebody does 5 sets of bench, 5 sets of incline, and then follows up with some cable flies. The cable fly load is not down 50% from what it should be at a 10 RM, right? A 10 repetition range, or it's not falling off quickly. That's a good sign that, okay, the muscle's recovering from all the volume in the session. And so you can continue to add volume. If you did the bench and then the incline, halfway through the incline, you're taking down the dumbbells, 2-3 sizes. Well, that's a good point to stop in terms of volume. You're reaching what some people call junk volume. Now, there's really no such a thing as junk volume. All volume does something. You're just at that point training more endurance type of qualities. You've depleted the muscle. It's just holding on now. It's trying to adapt to high fatigue. Okay. So let's assume though that you're not in that point. You've hit 15 sets and you want to add another set, but you only have 60, 90 minutes, and then you're also training. I use chest for example. You're also training hamstrings in the same session, right? Again, the old split routine of doing 30 sets of an exercise. Again, you're going to run into that problem of quality work, right? You only have maybe 10, 12 sets, depending on where you are in your training life, that before it falls off. So even if you had all the time to add 30 sets, it wouldn't matter anyway, right? So we're just trying to add 1 set or 2. Okay, so how do I do that when I just don't have the time? All right, well, back in the day, and I know video games are more complex than this, so I've heard. I have no interest in buying, just they're too expensive anymore. If you're, I'm a tightwad. But back in the day, let's just say a long time ago, you play a video game, and at the end of the season, right, you had your tokens. You had your 100% or whatever it is, and you could put 25% on strength, 25% on speed, 25% on something else, right? And then you could modulate, right? You could say, well, no, I want to do 50% on strength this year and 25% on speed because my team is really fast, but they need to get stronger, and so on. Well, that's periodization, right? There's periods of training where you're trying to emphasize one thing over the other. Or it could be more of a global thing. So like we're doing hypertrophy training now for everything we're doing. Now we're focused more on strength, hypothetically, right? That's more of a traditional linear ramp. If you get into block training, usually for more advanced athletes, they'll start to do things where, okay, you have an athlete that's strong and maybe speed is the issue. Let's just say linear speed, 20 meters sprint speed, if that's important. And let's just use back squat as an example. So they can squat 2 times their body weight. This is a male athlete squats 2 times their body weight, but his 20-meter speed is not where it should be. Okay, so you could take a training phase and say, all right, well, this athlete only has so much energy and time to spend on training. Let's pull the volume down on the strength training and put it at a level where it's just enough to maintain strength levels. Then I can spend more of that time on speed training in order to increase moving faster. So I got the strength, and then you could go back and forth. Like, okay, the athlete's really fast. Maybe we'll pull back the volume on speed training and increase in strength training. And you can have blocks where you focus on that. That's block periodization. Okay, you can do the same thing when it comes to hypertrophy training, when you start to hit these walls. Now, again, before I go further, I'm not saying pull volume from certain exercises and put on others if you don't do that unless you have to. So if you're a newbie and doing 2 sets or 3 sets or even 4 sets of an exercise of a movement pattern, chest, hamstrings, quads, whatever you think's important, right? It's in your plan. Hopefully there's a whole body component to that. But everything's going well and you're seeing, again, strength gains in that 10 rep range, 8 rep range, 12, 14 rep range, whatever range you're working in. Maybe if you're going up and down the range as you continue to do strength gains, you feel like you're recovering, you're still getting some soreness, right? That's an indicator you're in a good spot, right? You don't have to necessarily try to push more volume. But if you're at the point where like, well, soreness is kind of down, the strength gains are slowing in those rep ranges, it could be time to start looking at increasing volume. Now, again, I'm talking about hypertrophy here. I'm not talking about strength, okay? I'm incorporating strength in the mid-range rep ranges, but I'm not talking about a 1 RM or a 3 RM. That's different, right? If you want to get stronger, you got to lift heavy things, okay? We're just talking about hypertrophy gains, when to add volume, and then how do you do it when you don't have the time, okay? So let's assume that somebody has a training program within a day where I'm going to keep this real simple. You have 15 sets of bench and you have 15 sets of hamstring exercises, right? And again, that doesn't mean the same exercise. Maybe it's 3 exercises each, 5 sets apiece. You're like, okay, I want to add another set or 2 to these exercises. How do I do that? Well, in other videos, I've talked about with the simple exercises like biceps, triceps, lateral delts, doing finisher sets. You can pile up a lot of volume that way. You can do 1 set of 30, fail 2 to 3 times in that set, right? And basically you did 3 sets of 10 or whatever it is, 40 reps, 3 sets of 12 or whatever it is, right? However it irons out to be total reps within a short period of time. So there's that. But when it comes to, let's say you're going to train the chest and incorporating more multiple joint exercises, how do you increase that volume? Well, you start going back to my video game example and block training. Within a session and within a cycle, you pull volume from one muscle group or pattern and give it to another. So if we had 15 sets of chest, 15 sets of hamstring, I would pull maybe 5 sets of hamstring and put it over the chest exercise, right? And this is again all hypothetical, but this is within a training day. I'm going to pull 5 sets and give it of the bench, right? Or of the chest exercises. Now, you do that for the whole cycle, okay? Now you've pulled volume away from the hamstrings, and the exercises that are associated with the hamstrings, and you've put it with the bench. That means the hamstrings won't gain size necessarily during that cycle. But all you're shooting for is some maintenance, okay? You're assigning that extra 5 sets to the bench. Now, what that doesn't mean is the next week is you go ahead and do 5 more sets. So you do 20 sets within the session. You could still take, and I use the example of 5 sets. It can even be 3 if you wanted to, right? And you take 1 set and add it week 1, 2 sets maybe, if you recovered in week 3 or week 2 in the next cycle, and then week 3 maybe you don't need that extra set, right? You're like, I think I'm still pretty good, but you have that extra volume. So time-wise, total training time, then you've taken 3 sets from hamstrings and you've given it to the chest, right? Again, whatever pattern you are training the chest with, okay, and exercises. So hopefully that makes sense. It doesn't have to be 3 sets, it could be 2, but there's some shift there. You're doing some volume swapping, all right? And you do a cycle of that. Now, if you look at the hamstrings and you're like, well, the hamstrings are getting trained. Well, the nice thing is when you have a volume drop like that, and then if you would shift it back over, for example, if you drop the hamstrings down to 13 sets and you gave those 2 sets to the chest work, and then you shifted the other way. And so now you restored the week 1 back to 15 sets in the hamstrings, right? And then you started adding in the sets that you took from the chest in the next cycle, right? That's, what back in the day we used to call shocking the muscle, right? And in the same way, I prescribe complete deloads, whether it's a half a week or a full week, a complete rest week, following 4-5 cycles of training. And that follows like even an athlete that might do a 12-week build-up to something. You might have a week off after that where you train very little, you lay off the weights. What usually happens after that? Well, that week to follow, the soreness is much higher, right? The volume is down compared to what you were doing, of course, but soreness is much higher. That means the muscle detrained a little bit. And so, again, this is speculative, but if you detrain the muscle a little bit and then you hit it with that volume, or even a lower volume, detrain that muscle for a week and then hit it with a volume, let's stick with that, and soreness is high again, well, that could mean the muscle is going to supercompensate. So, the skeletal muscle is going to adapt to the higher volumes. And just kind of the same way, if you did the same exercise over and over again, physiologically, the muscle gets to the point where it's kind of, okay, I can deal with this. But if you remove the stimulus completely and then hit it with a high stimulus again, it's like, whoa, right? There's some degradation of the muscle, and so the degradation of the cytoskeleton, things like that. And so now there's a supercompensation that occurs that may not have happened. And it's kind of like overspeed training for hypertrophy, so over hypertrophy training. Again, that's speculative, but I've seen value in that and working with clients over the years. It also is nice for monotony as well. So back to what we're talking about here, if I took some of the volume away from the hamstrings and then restored it and then built on it, I might actually get a supercompensation as a result of that because the muscle had slightly detrained, and then it's hit with the volume. It'll supercompensate as a result. So it gets out of that monotonous, flat line of volume. Okay. Now there's other ways I mess with this over time, and I won't go into this because it's not really the focus of this video, but doing, dropping the sets back and going to higher reps. So doing 3 sets of 20, right, for a cycle, doing a high rep cycle. That's not really focused on here. This video I wanted to make though about just simple swapping. Look at volume swapping. If you're running out of time, look at volume swapping. This also can work in strength. The problem is with strength is, you can't grind out extra sets if the load is falling, because the load is king then, right? So when you're talking about strength, load is king. When you're talking about hypertrophy, volume is king. This makes a little bit more sense for volume because you can add those extra 1, 2, 3 sets to the chest, and as long as the loads aren't completely bleeding off and you're seeing a precipitous fall like I mentioned before, you can add that volume in and it's going to be beneficial for hypertrophy, right? And so, you know, if we just kept it simplistic with the hamstrings and the chest, if I paired those up and said I'm going to go back and forth, cycle to cycle, you know, increasing the volume on the chest and then assigning that volume to the hamstring over time, I can inch up the volume, total volume for the whole year, instead of just remaining flat for both of those muscle groups, and maybe seeing a flat result in terms of hypertrophy. Okay. Again, I'm discounting lots of things here like genetics, etc., how fast these gains occur. It doesn't, again, I'm not promoting that you have to do this. Certainly, again, this is for people that have been training for a long enough time that they've reached this volume wall within their training sessions. That could be 4 sets, it could be 5 sets per an exercise, or it could be 15 sets per about, it depends on who I'm talking to here. But certainly if you have enough time to get everything in, this is not for you. You don't need to do this yet. All right? This is where I don't have any more time to add more volume, and I'd really like to see my shoulders come up. Okay, maybe I'll pull a set from hamstrings and a set from the upper back, and I'll donate those sets to more shoulder work for this coming cycle. All right, probably just started with that and made it a lot easier, right? Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video. Again, don't forget to like and